How much money did you actually take from the IRS?
Oh, you would ask that.
All right. Today we are joined by Brett Johnson, and I've got one question I've got to get out of the way. I know that a lot of people are going to celebrate this, but how much money did you actually take from the IRS?
Oh, you would ask that. First of all, you're right. People may celebrate that, and there's no so there's no celebration to be had in stealing money from any person or any organization. All right, understand that. That being said, my proceeds from a life of crime, cybercrime, probably $7 million.
Wow. Now, on the flip side of crime not paying, how much did you walk away with?
Well, none. I mean, so I was arrested February 8th of 2005. My last seizure notice was January of 2010. So it took them 5 years, and they crawled up everything at the end of the day.
Okay. And I imagine you're still underwater. I mean, if you're going to really add out the dollars, you probably still haven't made up that much money.
I've not. I still owe the IRS, I think, around $300,000, something like that.
How do you work that, out of curiosity? Do you still have to donate to it with speaking gigs and different things, or?
Well, my life of crime results in I will never get a tax refund for the rest of my life.
Okay.
Okay, so that's a lot of it right there, but I do make the occasional payment as well. Be honest with you, with the pandemic and everything like that, all that stuff took us, they got put on the table for a bit until business starts to come back and all that.
Okay. And I asked the question right out the gate because you're on Netflix. You've been on Lex Fridman. You've been on Darknet Diaries with the great Jack Rhysider. You have this really fascinating, compelling story. You're a criminal rogue, cybercrime, all of that. And I'm a YouTuber. I want views. So there's a part of me that has a moral side that says, I'm not trying to celebrate crime. At the same time, I want people to click. So guess what the title of the video is going to be?
What's that?
He stole X amount of money from the IRS.
That won't get any clicks.
One can hope. But I do find the whole situation interesting. I just released a video on Frank Abagnale. My friend Javier Leva did a great podcast series on him, and a lot of things are coming out. And I'd like to talk to you about celebrity and crime and kind of the opposite side, because you're in a weird position. You're celebrated for being a criminal, and what you did was extremely clever. You're resourceful, all true, but you did harm a lot of people. So how do you square that in your mind where you're famous for something you did, but it's not necessarily like, a great sports achievement or something?
Sure. And, I've said this before, that my goal is not to be remembered as the guy who stole everything, but to be remembered as the guy who was able to turn it around. And I think that I'm evening those scales as we go along. I do not, and everyone is welcome to watch my videos, presentations, what have you. I do not brag about my life of crime. I do not think there's any pride to be found in victimizing individuals, companies, or anyone. I led a life of just deceit, of lying to everyone, friends, family members, people that I knew, people I didn't know, myself. I mean, I stole from everyone. That's nothing, absolutely nothing to be proud of. I was a criminal for well over 20 years. And during that 20-year span, I didn't have any friends. Criminals don't have friends. They have associates. So, while you say that people celebrate my being a criminal, I think that's true to a point. All right. I think that if I were still that individual that was going out victimizing people, that no one would celebrate that whatsoever. I think that they see that I work hard to try to make amends. And I don't think you can make amends for that, but I work hard to try to even the scales of those past actions. All right. I think that I think people recognize that, and I'm very open about that. I'm open about my background, um, and I think that to a degree that resonates. And I don't like talking about it in those
Mhm.
types of terms, but I think that at the end of the day that resonates, and I think that's why you see that like the Lex Friedman show has like 3 million views.
Sure.
I think that if it were just me getting on there saying, you know what? I committed all kinds of crime. I stole all kinds of money, and boy, did I have a fun time spending it. I think if I did that, that no one would really want to talk to this son of a bitch or watch this son of a bitch. But
Mhm.
I don't do that.
I have as I've been mulling this over, I've had a question because I think all of us have had things in our lives we're not proud of or mistakes that we've made. And I like to think that we're all survivors
Mhm.
in a way of our own stupidity, own circumstances, own whatever. But in order to truly be a survivor, you have to maintain something of yourself, some sort of a core element or value. And I don't know if anyone's ever asked you this, but in the darkest of the times, in the worst of what you were done, what element did you hold of yourself that you can be proud of now?
Well, it's really the same thing that I do now, and that is speaking up for those who won't speak. So you watch my show. You said you would watch the Frank Abagnale.
Mm.
I today I say the things that need to be said. I will call out criminals. I will call out companies. I've been doing that since I turned over this new leaf. But even when I was a criminal, in those criminal environments, I had that reputation of, by God, he will call it out if it needs to be called out. And that's something that I've always done. I've always been that outspoken person, and that person that even as I was victimizing people, that would look out for my tribe. Back then the tribe was criminals. These
Mhm.
days the tribe is consumers.
So where do the criminals fall? Because that's an interesting paradigm. Did you just switch teams, or do you have room in your heart for everyone?
Oh no,
Where are you?
I am every single day. I'm on Telegram. It used to be the dark web, but Telegram is now the criminal platform. I'm on Telegram under my name, Brett Johnson, and I talk to people. And hey, we'll bullshit around, but at the same time, I'm there so they can say, hey, you can turn over this new life. I'm there gathering information as well, but I don't judge anybody that's in those environments, because every criminal is unique. We're not all the same. Some of us can turn our lives around. Some of us can be rehabilitated. Some of us cannot. But it's I don't think that it's right to judge people, and I see that pretty often of calling criminals. We're all sociopaths.
Sure.
I don't believe that. I really don't. I think that some people, they have cognitive dissonance, that they get trapped in this thought pattern of, this is the only thing I can do. This is the only way I have to get money to support myself, family, or what have you. And it's just I think it's important to just talk to people sometimes, to just engage with them, and honestly, with what I've done, being able to get this legal career of mine now, I get a lot of people that gravitate toward that on the bad guy side. I tend to get a couple of 3 emails a week sometimes of people talking about, hey, I've been there. I'm committing crime right now, and I saw you interview here, and can I get some advice on cybersecurity? And then I get to tell them, well, it's one hell of a long path if you're trying to do this. But at least it's causing people to pause and think about things.
Well, you bring up a good point about that because you are directly harming some people, unquestionably. Stories mentioned about a woman who couldn't afford her roof, and
Right.
she wound up giving you the money and things like that. I've kind of read a little bit of different mob people and different things. Is this a case of compartmentalization, or in a weird way? I was back in the army during the day in this peacetime, but we were soldiers and they're civilians. Were you kind of in that mindset where you were sort of a soldier and everybody else out there is a civilian, and that is a way that you could keep moving forward?
Now, I think that your initial thought of compartmentalization is correct, because I was very good about doing that, and I even said, "Hey, in the real world, I'm a good guy, but you meet me online, and that's your ass." So I was known for that
Mm.
saying. I'm a good guy in the real world. I'm completely different, but in business, and I called it a business. In business, I'm completely different. I'll eat you alive. That compartmentalization is I think that's the way a lot of people, a lot of cyber criminals do that, because that online environment allows one to victimize others without having to see the consequences of their actions. If I'm victimizing you in person, I have to witness the harm that I'm causing. But if I'm doing it online, I can just say, "Hey, your data, that's it," or I'm just stealing from the bank, or I'm just stealing from the government. But I don't have to see the harm that's caused to individuals at that point. So it makes it much easier, and it makes it easier to compartmentalize that. When I made the decision the choice to turn things around, and I had a lot of help to do that. At that point, you really have to start breaking down those compartments, because it's not you don't lead a compartmentalized life. You lead a life, and it all bleeds in together. And that's one of the things that really fell apart as my life of crime came to an end. Was, when you're arrested, there are no compartments. Law enforcement,
Well, there is one. It's called a cell.
6x9 cell. That's your compartment. But it's the lies that you've told your friends, that's done. They now know what an asshole you are. That you lied to them completely. Lies that I told them. They asked me what I did for a living, and I was like, "Well, I'm a fraud consultant," and I just didn't tell them which part of the equation that I was on, and that was an inside joke for me. But that became really serious once they found that out. And so all those compartments break down, and that's one of the things that you have to accept when you turn your life around. Is, hey, there are no compartments. It's just you, and how are you going to treat people?
Well, how do you deal with that now? And I don't know if it's the right term, but I'm gonna call it the curse of knowledge.
Okay.
How do you navigate in a world where you can see a scam around every corner? Because I don't think the scam mentality is limited to online.
Right.
That is nothing more than just an outlet. The cons that you are doing, social engineering, is no different than the average con man from 30, 40, 50 years ago. It's just different avenues. I don't know
Right.
the best way to put it, but there's parallels with it. How do you reconcile that? Or do you just let yourself be potentially a victim? Just know, you know what? Sometimes I win, sometimes I lose. In order to just fit in with other people, I've got to stop thinking in this manner.
Well, I mean, first of all, you're right. And I said it today on LinkedIn. There is nothing new under the sun. Just because, a crime or a scam looks new to you, it's just new to you. It's been around for a while. And cybercrime is that translation of those old street scams and hustles and frauds to an online environment, by and large. The way, and you're right too, that so not only does that life of crime that I had and building those criminal structures give me that insight and experience and knowledge base, but also being in prison. When I was locked up, I had a lot of people that kind of took me in under their wing and taught me the correct way to conduct myself. And one of the guys told me, "Hey, one of the positives in prison is that you will develop one hell of a bullshit meter." And he was right. You can point that stuff out pretty quickly. And I do that. The way I handle that, and I talk about it when I give a presentation or even in my show, is trust but verify. I don't believe in leading a paranoid life, of being scared or just on guard all the time. I think that as human beings, we want to trust each other. That's one of the things that makes scams so successful. We want to trust each other. I think we do that, but it's important to be verifying everything across the board, to understand that, hey, there are sharks in the water, and you need to be aware of that. So I think as long as you've got that situational awareness in the back of your head someplace, you're okay. It's just that my situational awareness tends to be much higher than a lot of other people's. I'm very good about knowing whether it be an online environment or a physical world environment when something's off. And I pay attention to that.
I don't know if it's related, but is it similar to the principle of never loan somebody money that you can't afford to give as a gift?
That's exactly right. That is exactly right. You don't want to have to worry about that, stress out, have anxiety or anything else. So if you're going to loan someone money, just plan on, hey, keep it. If they give it back, that's a blessing. If not, I'm not worried about it.
Okay. And you mentioned learning this in prison, and some of what you were saying in the different interviews made me wonder if you learn not only from the other inmates, but because you stated you had a substance abuse problem to get reassigned to another prison, did you find that anything, I don't know if it was a 12-step program or anything like that, might have helped line up with maybe working through some of the issues you might have had in reintegrating?
To me, yeah. And what I did was, excuse me, in federal prison, the only time you get off is the drug abuse program. It's a 9-month intensive therapy program, peer assessed program for cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's not about drug rehabilitation. It's about understanding that your thoughts determine your feelings determine your emotions. And that really makes all the difference in the world. Like when I was a criminal, when I was in prison before this program, I had very little empathy for anyone. And my wife will tell you that I still struggle with empathy problems today, but I'm much better. I am much better than I used to be. But I had very little empathy at all for people. And it was about understanding the importance of that and developing that empathy. And but you learn things like gratitude and the importance of being humble, of being honest and open. And you start to understand that. And it took me about 2.5 years behind the fence to accept that the reason I was in prison was me. It wasn't the cops caught me or someone told on me. No, I put myself in prison. I made those choices. And that acceptance of responsibility is something that when you do that, when you honestly accept responsibility for your actions, whether, you don't have to go to prison to accept responsibility, but when you understand your choices result in who you are and where you are in life, that's a really powerful thing. If you honestly can do that, that's a really powerful thing because you start to understand that, hey, I can make the choice not to do this anymore. And that cognitive behavioral therapy program, that 9-month program, that really helped me get to that point of understanding that, I don't have to continue to think like this. I can make a choice to change. And I did.
Interesting. And I don't know why it pops in my head. I always think of cognitive therapy or some of, and I'm not studied up in it, but that there's a degree of, I hate to say fake it till you make it, but there is a degree of like, maybe you don't feel humble, but if you keep acting humble, you start to actually visualize humility. I don't know if that makes sense.
Actually, it does. It does. And the thing about it is there's some truth to that fake it till you make it. There absolutely is. And when I made this choice to turn my life around, I got on LinkedIn and I started to surround myself with every law enforcement guy that would even look at me. Just bam, 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 trying to build that support network up. And it was a degree of fake it until you make it. Not because I was wanting people to think I was legitimate, but because I figured, hey, if I've got connections to all these law enforcement people, they're all looking at me and they're going to call the shit out if I start to do something. So I built that support network like that. And then over time, guess what? It became a real support group or a safety net at that point. So, and you see this constantly of especially in this program in prison, of guys that, hey, they come in there to get the time off. They don't care about the program. They don't want to talk about anything, nothing else, but they're forced, if they're going to get the time off, they're forced to start faking it, to start to show that fake empathy or that fake gratitude. But over time, they start to understand that, hey, what? There's something to this. So that false action has some truth underlying to it, and then it becomes the truth at the end of the day.
Interesting. So the habit can turn into a reality.
Absolutely. Absolutely it can.
Okay. And communicating online, you've mentioned LinkedIn earlier, you said Telegram. So I want to get into some thing that I think is of value to both creators and the audience. And very specifically, I have a YouTube channel. And I
Right.
have a giant problem. I'm not the only creator out there who does. But because of your mindset and background, you may be able to tell me what the hell's going on, what can be done, what's wrong here. But we have commenters who like to impersonate us as a creator, and there's always a WhatsApp number or a Telegram number. It's always a scam. I blame YouTube for not stripping this. They need to
Right.
do a better job, in my opinion. But what I would like to know, I have assumptions, but I'd like to know what is being sought when people are commenting as me and saying, hey, follow me on Telegram or WhatsApp.
Well, first of all, you're getting someone off the platform. All right. So you figure that, and I had a decent following on my YouTube channel before I took this hiatus, and now I'm back trying to build this base up again. But the most important thing, whether you're on a dating site, on eBay, LinkedIn, YouTube, what have you, the most important thing is to get you off that platform. All right. If I'm a scammer on Facebook, for example, and I'm sending you Facebook messaging services, I'm going to try to get you over to some different platform. That way, the gods of that specific platform are not looking at our conversation. All right. And I can start to manipulate you more at the end of the day. What I'm looking for is information, access, data, or cash. That's what criminals are typically looking for online. One or a combination of those types of things. And I need to get you in that isolated type of environment to manipulate you into doing that. It's much easier off platform to do that, to gain your trust all of a sudden. Okay. So, and with my show, I kept getting these comments about trying to refer people to a porn site or crypto investments was what it was. All right. So you take that, and what's going on is you've got bot programs that they recognize the new video that pops up, and they put it out there, hoping that their comment, because it's on a trusted video, that their comment will also gain a degree of trust as well, which actually works out pretty well sometimes. All right. So you think about, if someone trusts, say, eBay, and a lot of us do, we trust eBay to send us the items that we've ordered. We also trust eBay to vet the other members that are part of eBay. What we don't understand is that criminals are using a variety of tools to gain access or accounts on eBay or YouTube or what have you. And because of that, the platform itself lends a degree of trust to the criminal attacker. Also, the video, like on YouTube, that they're commenting on, that also lends a degree of trust to that attacker as well, and visibility.
Okay. Now, there's a flip side to that too. Like I personally think they look sloppy.
They do.
When they do the Telegram and things like that. But I remember a few years back, they did a study and they looked into the Nigerian scam emails. And what they found was that they were deliberately sloppy. And that kind of is so counterintuitive. It didn't make sense to me. But from what I understand, and I don't know if it's the same thing here, they're looking for people who are a little more gullible. And I'm not trying to be rude or mock people, because it's just the best way I know how to phrase it.
Sure.
And that will overlook like misspellings or basic errors, so they might be easier to manipulate. Is that a similar principle here?
I would say that depending on who the attacker is, you may find that. All right. Simply because if I'm doing a spray and pray attack of simply having bots post thousands upon thousands of different replies on YouTube videos across the board, I'm wanting to somewhat try to vet those potential victims that are coming through as well. So how do I vet those people? Do I do that by coming up with basically a phishing link that looks like it's outstanding? No, because that's going to get me more numbers of false positives. So what I do is I come up with some messy crap and throw that out there, understanding that, hey, the people who respond to this, that's my target audience right there. Now, that doesn't mean that that more educated or more powerful people or people who are in a higher economic class or anything like that, that does not mean that those people are less susceptible to being scammed. They absolutely are not.
Sometimes more so.
Sometimes, and that's what I was getting ready to say. I would argue that to a degree. I mean, hell, those are the type of people that I used to like to talk to because I know they've got blinders, a blind side somewhere, and it's just finding what that is and then exploiting it at that point in time. If you look at spear phishing, for example, it doesn't really matter how much cybersecurity awareness training or how rich, poor, educated, what have you that someone is. Spear phishing tends to be about 87% successful, regardless of who that individual is. If I have enough information on you and know what I'm doing, I'm going to get what I want from you from that spear phishing: information, access, data, cache.
Well, and I have a thought on that, and I've talked to different people like Chase Hughes, who does hypnosis and manipulation and things like that. They're good people, but
right.
There's an argument that time is urgent, and you can confirm this to be true or not. But if you're going to get a victim, the more they hem and haw and are uncertain, the worse they are for you. Somebody who is absolutely certain in who they are and what they are is easier to manipulate because they're decisive. And you need the decisiveness, or you're wasting your time and you're more at risk. Is that a fair assessment?
To a large degree, that's very fair. I don't want somebody that's always questioning things because that's a headache. All right. But I understand that sometimes that depends on the type of scam that's going on as well. We're talking more short-term scams at that point. I want someone who's really on the ball. All right. I don't care if you're suspicious. If you're on the ball, that's what I like. Now, compare that to, say, a romance scam, something that's much more long-term. At that point, I don't really care if you're hum-hawing around, because this thing's going to take 6-9 months sometimes to be fully realized. So, hey, you hum-haw around as much as you can. I'm going to take my time too. I've got 10, 12, maybe 15 victims on the line doing the same thing to them at the same time. So we can see if we can cajole you into making the decision later on. And usually, so someone who's really doing that hum-hawing bit, usually the long-term scams are more effective because as they continue to question, I continue to do techniques that will build trust with that potential victim. All right.
Now that's an irony. Just going by the interviews, you were kind of on the flip side of the romance scams, maybe a couple times.
Right. Romance scams are. It's people think that scammers want cash immediately. All right. And you got to realize that's not always the case. If I can get $100 from you, that's great. But will I wait a month if I can get 3,000 from you? Yes, I will. Yes, I will do that. All right. So you think about a romance scam, and you've probably seen me talk about this. So trust online. Trust is established through technology, tools, social engineering. That technology can be your hardware, it can be your software, but it's also the websites that you're visiting. We trust our tech. We trust the websites, in this case, dating sites, to vet the other members, to make sure there are no scammers in there. But criminals use tools to manipulate that. They use stolen identities, SOX 5 proxies, spoofed phone calls, things like that, to gain access to those environments. And then those criminals rely on the algorithm to deliver unto them potential victims. So they don't really go out and start spamming people on Match.com or where have you. They just wait for the algorithms to start delivering matches. Then what do you do from there? Do you simply go out and send an email or a message saying, "I love you, long time, send me money"? No. You try to fit in with the rest of the crowd. So you simply, hey, saw your profile, thought I'd say hi, because it's a long-term scam. So you start with a very low chit chat, and then you develop over time to a more increased type of relationship. And the whole time you continue to develop trust, because trust is developed over time. So you develop that trust and you keep layering it on there. And then you introduce the problem of, child's got a heart problem, needs surgery, what have you, understanding that as human beings, we're very good. Even if we're suspicious, and most victims are most of the time, even if you're suspicious, you're told something like that, what are you going to do? Is there anything I can do to help? At that point, this is the big thing. At that point, does a professional say, well, yeah, I could use some money? No, you don't. At that point, you deny the offer because you understand that offer is going to come again. When you deny the offer, it solidifies trust with that victim because the victim's thinking in the back of their head, it's probably a scam. They just want money. You've just denied the offer of money. So the victim all of a sudden has that opportunity to latch onto that. It's got to be real. It can't be a scam. If it was, they would have taken my money at that point. And that's how these scams operate, typically.
Can't that suspicion also be utilized for your purposes too? Because if I'm suspecting you and I'm suspicious of you, I kind of feel guilty that I'm suspicious of my friend.
Oh, yeah.
And so as a manipulator, I would think you could weaponize that and literally probably pull out even more to where I knowingly am giving you money, even though I'm giving you money and it's probably bad money. But then I feel guilty that I even thought that at all. And I'm caught into a cognitive loop.
So what helps with that is it gets really complicated. This whole idea of how scams operate, especially online. Society is very good about blaming the victims, especially with cybercrime, especially with these types of scams. And we've even got lines that go with it. Why would you send money to someone you don't know? Why would you click on that link? Who would believe in gift cards? So you've got the ready-made lines ready to go, right? What you see that happens is scammer starts on one side, victims on the other. Scammers are going to try to get the victim over to their side. When a victim is scared of being judged, that traditional safety net that they've got of friends, family members, associates, they don't rely on that anymore because they're scared of those people saying those things to them. So they shut them off. Typically, they won't even tell them that, hey, I'm talking to this person online. I think it might be a scam. They shut that off because they're scared of somebody saying, basically, are you stupid? So they shut it off, and all of a sudden, the only person they've got to talk to is the criminal. So they're in that echo chamber all of a sudden. And that makes it much easier to manipulate that person. You're absolutely right. That idea of using someone's suspicions against them. I've talked to a lot of people that have been victimized, and you get this lost cost fallacy that pops up of, I've already put this much money in, just a little more, and it's going to be all right. And the criminal knows you're thinking that, and they start feeding into it. Well, it's going to be okay. I know you've given me all this. What, you don't trust me? Bam, right there. It's got to be real. It's got to be real. I've already given this much. And they get to the point where I can't face it if it's not real. So they keep investing.
And that scales all the way up to a Vietnam War, for God's sake. So, I mean, there's
scales to everything.
Lost cause fallacy is very huge.
Right.
So on the flip side of that, because I think it's very important, sometimes we feel like somebody we know or love or somebody in our lives could be potentially a victim. How would you recommend approaching them so they don't feel like you're treating them as stupid, that you can just show them that you are available to them without judgment? How would you recommend that you might address that person?
That's a good question. And this goes back into what we were talking about, empathy. All right. You have to really put yourself in the place of that person. All right. Instead of sitting there on the outside and thinking, man, this guy's an idiot. And you just want to shake them, man, wake up. How can you believe this? Instead of doing that, you have to consider it from their viewpoint. They're involved in that. They think this is real. And if you can really put yourself in their shoes, the response will be different. It will absolutely be different. And it's all about listening to the person. All right. Just, hey, don't judge, just listen. All right. Then you give your viewpoint. Once you give your viewpoint, I'm going to tell you, nope, that's not what's happening in this case. That's fine. Tell you what, let's start bringing in, let's pull the Google up. Let's call AARP's Fraud Watch. Let's call law enforcement, and they can walk you through every single time this specific scam has happened before. We can pull news article stuff. So you just come up with a lot of information, a lot of different contacts. Like, I'm an ambassador for AARP. You can call Fraud Watch. This is what they do, and they will walk you through that type of attack, that type of scam. So once you start to talk to people that don't even know you, that's walking you through exactly what's happening, at that point, it should start to make a difference. It should start to make you question things. All right. Now, that being said, there are some people. I watched a presentation by the head of security with Western Union a few years ago. And he said that if a scammer can get someone to leave their house, that there's really nothing that you can do to stop that person from sending the money out. And there's a lot of truth to that. You know, it's about trying to stop that initial action from happening. So as what I talk about is raising situational awareness inside of yourself, understanding that if you get that phone call, that knock at the door, an email, piece of mail in your mailbox, what have you, that's an unsolicited request for information. You know, someone's looking for information, access, data, or cash. If you get that, it's important not to respond. If you're on the phone with someone, understanding that an attacker primary purpose or goal is to get you to react emotionally, to set logic and reason to the side, just that knee-jerk reaction. Because of that, you need to be able to take a breath, to pause and consider what's going on, to look for an outside source, whether it be a friend or an enemy, where you can ask them, hey, does this sound right to you? That's why I reference like Fraud Watch, for example, or the sheriff's department, something like that. Someone you can call and talk to, hey, does this sound right to you? That outside view, that objective outside view will give you the basis that you need to start acting all of a sudden. And also pausing, you know, understanding that just because someone's screaming at you on the phone to go down and start getting gift cards or you're going to go to jail, you can hang up, take a pause, just tell them, hey, I'll call you back. They're not wanting you to call them back because you can't call them back. So you say that, start to understand that, hey, something's wrong here immediately. Just pausing, taking a breath, let reason take over, getting that outside source to talk to as well from just, you know, the victim point of view helps to circumvent a lot of the crime that's out there. From the family and associate point of view, friends and all that, it's putting yourself in the place of that victim. If you can't do that, you don't need to be talking to this person because you're going to be judgmental at that point. And this is not about judgment because everyone is susceptible to these types of crimes.
You know, it's funny. You said outside source earlier. You said it just now, and it made me think of something. And I feel like a lot of this is sublimating our own ego. Is it sometimes beneficial that instead of my talking to somebody saying, I can see exactly what the hell's going on here. You're doing this, this, and this. I just say, hey, this is my friend Brett. I don't think anything. This is my friend Brett. I know you don't know the guy or whatever. He's a complete stranger to you, but can you just talk to him about what's going on? Is there sometimes that case? And as an example, we all have our friend who we've told 1,000 times that something is going on. They never listen. And then some third party or somebody they just met comes in. They say the exact same thing. And all of a sudden, your friend is receptive to what is being said by this other person who doesn't even know them. And you're going, I've told you that 5,000 times.
Right.
Is that perhaps a tool to use to just say, I know they're not going to listen to me. Let me try to insert somebody in there. And it doesn't matter if it's me saying it or somebody else saying it. I want to save my friend.
I think that's absolutely the case. All right. So a lot of these romance scams or whatever the scam is, it's your parents that's falling for it. All right. Well, your parents used to wipe your butt. Your parents have remembered every stupid thing that you've done for decades. And now you're telling them you're wrong. No, I'm not wrong. You used to be an idiot. And I've not seen much evidence to change my opinion on that. So, but you bring in that outside person that they don't even know that starts to talk to them. Hey, this is what's happening to you. This is what's happening. Look, it's happened to this person. I deal with these people every single day. That makes a difference because they don't have that subjective view of that person. They don't have that at all. So because of that, they're more likely to listen. You know, if you've used to, wipe somebody's butt and you grounded them, but half of their childhood life, you're probably not going to listen to them once they try to tell you what to do.
Yeah, fair enough. Now, to wrap things up, one, I'd love to have you back possibly for a live stream where people can just ask questions coming in. But as a preparation for that, what is the question that I should have asked you? What did I neglect to ask you that you've been waiting? You've done hundreds of interviews, literally. What is that damn question that you're like, why the hell isn't anybody asking me this?
I don't know. I get the question a lot. I had that Friedman ask me that too. Would I change anything? And the answer to that's no. And I get static on that because I hurt a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
All right. But I like who I am now, and I like the job that I do now. So that's an important question. I get the question, would I ever do it again? And I don't answer no to that, because I think if I answer no to that, that's me putting myself in that blind spot. I say instead that I've not done anything, and every day that I go without doing it increases the chances that I won't. And I know what my triggers are, so I avoid those triggers as well. I've got a whole system that I've got to build up to avoid those triggers. Those are important questions to me. There's the question of victims. We don't give enough voice to the victims of crime, of my crimes, of Frank Abagnale's crimes. You did a show on him. We don't give voice to that. Javier was very good about that. There's just all kinds of stuff. One of the things that really, and you kind of touched upon that at the beginning of this show, of that celebrity that I'm celebrated because of my history, and there's a lot of truth to that. I think one of the things that we don't really appreciate are the people every single day that do every single thing right, and they don't get any recognition at all. Like I'm widely trusted in cybersecurity these days. I'm get a lot of chatter and feedback and things like that. But think about all the people in cyber that spend their lives just doing the nuts and bolts.
The good guys.
The good
Always
guys.
are a good guy.
Right. Of protecting.
One.
Right. Of
Yeah.
of trying their damnedest to protect of society. Same thing with law enforcement. I've been very fortunate being invited to Quantico, and you see people there that the top of our society that give up lucrative careers just to do the right damn thing. These are points that maybe we should have talked about that a little bit.
Hopefully we will. And you bring up a good point. Everybody knows Ted Bundy, but can anyone name a single victim?
Right. Amen.
And that's
Amen.
disturbing. So
Amen.
On that black note, thank you very much.
Let's end on a downturn.
It has been fun, and I really appreciate your refreshing honesty and openness about it. And I hope to see you again soon.
I hope so too. Take care. Stay safe out there.